Hello again and welcome back to our texturing series of videos. So what we've done so far is we've created the color map for our body of our character. So I'm pretty happy with how that's all looking. So now I'm going to start to create the specular layer. So we've got our normal, we've got our diffuse, now we need to do our specular layer. To do that, I am just going to open up the diffuse TGA that I've already made, and I'm going to copy and paste that back into my PSD file. I'm then going to place that into its own group again, just like I did with everything else. This time I'm going to make it green and I'm going to call it specular. Okay, so make sure that my diffuse is underneath there, and I'm going to call it the spec base. So once I've done that, I'm going to go to image adjustments, desaturate, so I have a base to start with for my specular map. Now, since we've done most of the work already with our color map, I'm just going to use different levels and different image adjustment layers to create the specular levels that I want. So this is basically letting the shader or the material know how shiny a particular area is. Okay, so you can see here I'm just using a layer adjustment here, a levels adjustment I should say, and I'm just bringing in the black and the white to deepen my spec layer. I'm then going to play with the brightness a little bit as well. So these two layers, adjustment layers, are actually affecting the whole of the map. I'll eventually go in and I'll start to affect different areas, so I won't want the pants to look the same as the skin, for example. But for now I'm going to just show you how this works. So if I save that out as a TGA again and go back into my body layer, in my spec level I'll go to my bitmap and I'll find the TGA, and we'll select that and apply it to the body. So you can see instantly how it's been affected. So everything started to look a little bit shinier now. Okay, so now we need to go in and make sure that each area is working the way it should. So we want the skin to be quite dull, a little bit matte. I mean, it can be quite shiny when it's wet or glistening, but she's not wet or sweaty. So we want to bring that right back. We'd want the buckle to be super shiny, so we'll need to bring that up. So we're just going to have to go through each section, and I'll play with the levels and the contrast in order to get the effect that I want. So you can really see how that's affecting in Max when you apply an Omnilight and just go around the model. Okay, so we can start that by creating another brightness layer, or adjusting this brightness layer. So I'm going to bring the brightness right up and play with the levels a little bit more, just to even out the contrast between everything. And if I add, see, that's blown it right out. So again, it's just a matter of experimenting to get the look that you want. So the darker the color is, the more matte the material will appear. So things will be more dispersed across, the shine will be more dispersed across the material or whatever it is. If the lighter the color it is, the more metallic or the shinier something will look. So for each of the areas I'll go through and I'll apply different levels or different brightnesses, adjustment layers, again using the mask to make sure that it's only affecting the area that I want. So if I start with the pants, you can see how making that area a little bit darker has made the light spread out more across the pants, so the highlight isn't sharp like it would be on something that's metal. it's actually more spread out over the surface of the pants. Normally you would do this part in conjunction with having it in a game engine, so you would go back and forth between your spec map and your engine to see how things are looking in game. You may need to adjust them because depending on the engine, it will be depending on how it uses spec and how spec is applied. So yeah, but for now I'm just going to use Max as my viewport and seeing how it all looks in Max. If I'm happy with it, it will usually, there might only be minor tweaks when we take it into UDK. Okay, for the boot, obviously we want to do the same sort of thing, so we'll need to get more more levels. We'll apply another level layer. Again, so this is where our flat layer comes in handy. We can use our magic wand to select the area that the boot is in, and then we can apply the levels to that. So when we select, if we have the marquee tool, the area already masked, when we go to levels, it'll apply that mask automatically to that area. Okay, so we obviously want the stitches to be separate, to have a separate specular to the rest of the boot as well. So an easy way to do that would be to go back down into our clothing layer in our diffuse and to copy that, so just dragging it to the new layer button to create the copy, and then moving it up into our spec layer and renaming them obviously as well. So it's also got color in it, and we don't want color in our spec map, so we'll need to desaturate those as well. You can either go to image desaturate, or you can do what I just did and preserve transparency and flood the area with the color. So the preserve transparency button is just at the top there, and it'll give it like a little lock icon on your layer to know that something has been locked. Okay, so I'm putting a lighter color on the stitches and a darker color on the holes, and seeing how that looks in Max. Okay, you can see here I'm just experimenting with something, so I'm bringing the lightness color right up. Like, I've created a new layer. I've selected obviously the boot area using my magic wand, and the flats in the flat base layer in my diffuse, selecting that area and flooding it with white. I've then brought it down so I can see if I gradually increase the whiteness of the boot, how that's going to affect it. You can see it's made it a lot more shinier. Kind of looking a little bit too plasticky. It's not really the look I'm going for, but I'm experimenting it and I'm seeing how best to create the material that I want. Okay, you can see I've settled for something having the boot itself, the main part of the boot itself, to be quite dark, and lightening up the sole to make it look a little bit more shinier than the actual main part of the boot. So I'm just continuing to work through each area of clothing and adjusting the levels, applying maybe a color over the top, and then applying either a black or white flood layer over the top of the area that I'm trying to work on, and then bringing it back, and just playing with it to see how this affects it in max, to make sure that I've got the material, or I'm simulating the look of the material that I want the best way I can. So for most parts of the clothing, it's going to be quite dark to get the look that we want. It's only the belt buckle where it'll be really shiny, and I might make the fingernails quite shiny as well. So it's a constant back and forth between Max and Maya to get the appearance that I want, and again, just using levels, brightness and contrast, and black or white overlays, and the masks. There's a lot of masks involved to get the look that I want. So like here, I just selected the belt, I've flooded it with black, and I'm just got to make it quite matte. And with the belt buckle, I've made it white. So this is going to be quite shiny because we want it to be metallic. I'm then going to go in with my very small brush, again on a different layer, so everything can be changed at a later date, and almost with pure white this time. I'm going to go in and I'm going to go over those scratches just to make the edges of the buckle really pop when the light hits it. With the skin, I'm going to make that quite dark as well, because I don't want it to look like she's sweating or she's wet or anything like that. I just wanted to have the natural skin highlight. So I'm going to bring it right back, and just to make it more diffuse and more matte looking, so she's not made of plastic. Okay, I'm happy with how the body is working out, so the shine and everything is looking good to me, but she's looking a bit clean. Now, she is an archaeologist. This really doesn't make sense. She should have dirt on her. So we're going to go back into Photoshop, and I'm going to apply some dirt and some scratches and stuff to her actual clothing. And again, you will need to do it in both the diffuse and the specular layer to get the spec to match the diffuse. But in my spec layer, I'm going to grab some brushes that I found on the web. These are free brushes. You can find a lot of free brushes on the web. Just make sure that you adhere to whatever copyright or usage terms that they have available. Copyright is just not something that should ever be done. It's unfair to the author. I'm also going to be using textures. Now, these ones I found on CG Total. It'll give me a nice size texture and enough definition to work with here. So I've brought this texture in, and I'm going to just put it overlay it on some areas. I've used multiply as a layer blend, and I'm going to use the mask. So I don't want to ruin this image itself, because I may want to use it again. I'm just applying a mask, and I'm painting in black to get rid of the areas that I don't want. So just adding a little bit of dirt and speckles in some places. See, so I've duplicated the image, so now I can use it again. So I'm just adjusting the hue slightly so I can have a little bit more variation in the dirt. So this is just a scratch texture I think I found on CG Total. But you can see that if the way we use it like this, we can make it look a little bit more like dirt. Now I'll use a variety of images, and I'll use a variety of brushes to get the effect that I want. Most of it I'll do around the pants, so in areas where dirt would naturally fall. So since she's kneeling in the dirt a lot, there'd be around her knees, maybe a little bit up on her thighs, and definitely a lot on her boots. So just working it up and using different colors and different textures and brushes to get the effect that I want. When I use a brush, I'll do it the same way. I'll just lay down the brush on a new layer, and I'll use a mask to bring it back out of the areas that I don't want it. Again, be conscious that if you go over an area that has a seam, so where your UV layout ends, if you go over it with a bright color, you will get a seam again. So you'll need to be aware that you need to match up your seams if you want a scratch to go from one side of her leg to another. Okay, here you can see I'm using a brush this time. Again, it's a free brush. You can find them anywhere on the web. Just pay attention to the terms of usage, and I'm just going through and I'm stamping them down. So I'm using just a brown color just for dirt. I'm going nuts. I'm just placing it down and putting it anywhere. Again, changing the colors, and then I'll go through with a mask and cut that back. So I've made several different layers, each with different brushes on them, and then I can go back with my mask and get rid of the areas that aren't needed. So things that went over the skin and areas that went over the eyeball and things like that. Another thing you can do when you're creating the dirt layers is you can play with your blend modes. So don't just stay with normal, try multiply or overlay or screen or one of the many other ones that are in there to get the different effects and the different colors and intensities of the dirt in your pants or wherever you're applying it. if you do go over an area like your skin or your eyeball, make sure that you do go through on your mask and get rid of it. It's amazing how something that's just very tiny can be picked up by the human eye, so you mightn't realize it's there, but somebody else will. So, and just be mindful that if you do go over those areas, to make sure you go over with the mask and get rid of them all from your eyes and from your skin or wherever else that the dirt shouldn't be. Okay, I think I'll leave this video here and we can continue on with our dirt in the next video.